Gable Steveson cut by the Buffalo Bills. Now, this is a really interesting story. First off, Gable's like 24 years old. The fact that he has even been a Buffalo Bill, the fact that same Gable Steveson that was cut by WWE, I think he was under the NXT banner, same Gable Steveson that won the Olympic Games, same Gable Steveson that passed up a year of NCAA eligibility, same Gable Steveson who was talked about by Dana White, who was made an offer by PFL and I believe Bellator. I mean, it's one of these things, right? Like, why do you make a story on a guy being cut? That sounds like a negative. Well, there's more to it on the Gable story. It's quite a fascinating one. I don't know when last time he played football. I imagine he must have played in high school, right? I mean, he must have. But I also can tell you a lot about his high school career. I can tell you a lot of things that he did at Apple Valley, which included the postseason cadet world championships, just by example. It's not like he was just a seasonal wrestler. So I don't know when he played football, but he must have. He must have. And maybe didn't. And for sure did not beyond high school, and then by the way was with the Bills. All right, how do we get here, guys? Well, let's back up. So, Gable Steveson becomes the Olympic champion, and he walked his way through the Olympics. Now, your memory and your lion eyes will dispute what I just said. He won the gold medal with 0.2 of 1 second left on the clock. And you think that you're a wrestling aficionado, but I'll just remind you, there was one sequence where he gave up 6 points in 3 seconds. He got taken down and he got gut-wrenched like a fish. I mean, it was like he checked out. For 4 seconds, he spotted the guy 6 points. So yes, he did then have to come from behind with 0.2 left, but I'll just share for you, he walked through that tournament. He had the defending Olympic champion the night before. And because this is Peacock, which is the world's worst coverage, you don't even see that match. The semifinals, he had the defending Olympic champion. He beat him 8-0. The guy did not even score, and Gable became the youngest American to ever win the Olympic Games. I believe that was a distinction held previously by Henry Cejudo. They were both 20 years old, but Gable was a younger 20 than Henry. So the reason that becomes so relevant is he was very far from his athletic prime. Like, a man will have 2 different times, or a boy will have 2 different times. One is when he just goes through puberty, which is what everybody reads about in school, where through no fault of his own, he will wake up one day and he will be stronger. He will speak differently. He will be more masculine, known as puberty, right? But what a lot of people don't know is a male gets that a second time. He gets that again. Some people have commonly nicknamed it dad strength or old man strength, but it does come a second time. And just by virtue of staying alive, like if Gable didn't even go in a wrestling room, just by virtue of staying alive, he would have become a better wrestler. Gable at 24 years old, if that Gable ran into 20-year-old Gable, 20-year-old Gable that's training every single day, and 24-year-old Gable runs into him, he'll take his lunch money. I'm sharing that with you because he not only won the Olympics, he walked through the Olympics. The Olympics were easy for him. Record-setting, youngest to have done it. Oh, and by the way, he was not in his athletic prime. That's what I'm really trying to share with you. So I can only imagine what it would be like to reach that level of success. And I must tell you, I really do think about myself that had I won the NCAAs, had I won the Olympic Games, I don't know that I would have gone back either. Like I would have just enjoyed the attention of having people asking me to come back. On a very serious note, I would have enjoyed people tell, oh, Chael, you could win it again. You sure are great. Oh, boy, we sure miss seeing you. I think everybody would have to wrestle with that to some degree. I've seen many people wrestle with that exact thing, and 100% of them wilt and they go back. They just did it for the attention. But Gable's was different, and he had a multi-million-dollar offer from the WWE to go and do professional wrestling. So one thing about the Olympics, whether you win it or whether you're the youngest or whether you walk through it or not, is it feels like such a long time until the next Olympics. Now, this one was going to be overly short because if you remember, the 2020 Olympics got pushed to 2021, so it's a 3-year break instead of a 4-year break, and Gable was so young, and he had college eligibility left, so it was going to feel like the snap of a fingers. But all the same, when you're presented with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to go and do something else, which in this case was a multi-million-dollar professional wrestling contract, Gable took it. Now, of all the terrible things that Vince has ever been accused of in the media, some of which are true and some of which aren't, this was amongst the scummiest that he ever did that I ever witnessed. So, Gable was not going to make it in the world of professional wrestling. Okay, big news flash, and I don't know why. There was different rumors and different reports, but either way, it really doesn't matter. It was glaringly obvious he wasn't going to make it. So somewhere within this, they hatch a plan that they're going to build his star and shine it a little bit brighter, and they're going to send him back to the hands of USA Wrestling while being under contract with the WWE, get another world championship, and possibly an Olympic title, and that would be something special and unique, and that we could work with. Well, they're right. That would be very special. That would be very unique. And he set out to do that very thing. Makes the world team, looks better than he'd ever looked before, beat the guys that he was beaten previously worse than he'd ever beat them, right? Back to my original point, is just by virtue of staying alive, his peak was still out there. Makes the world team. And roughly a month prior to the World Championships, the WWE pulls Gable from the team. They renege on their plan and the offer that they made with him to send him back to USAW and to go through with this process. Now, we're all waiting for something big to come down, like, okay, this is a work and a swerve. It's not as though USAW and the UWW were going to get them a ton of attention and blow them up anyway, but we're not pretending they are. We understand what it was, and you still agreed to do it. And for whatever it was, whatever success he has, you then, with your power of marketing through your media channels, are going to be able to turn that into something. Like, I mean, this was the plan all along. So they pull him from it, and then we get told that it was to go and do a house show on a Thursday. And again, we think this is the swerve. Like, of course he didn't pull out to do a house show on a Thursday. Of course not. The big news is coming. It never came. To the best of my knowledge, he went and did a house show on a Thursday. World Championships come and go. Anybody that watched it would have believed meaningfully and handily Gable would have cruised right through. And that sends you into his senior year of college. So he flirts with the idea of going to Iowa. She had a big money offer for him, and allegedly was for the postseason. Hey, we need you at the Big Tens. We need you at the NCAA championships. You're doing this wrestling thing, and you can't get in the room quite as, but like, you know, they were open to having a conversation. Minnesota ends up landing him for $400,000. He makes an announcement to the team, I'm still here. I'm going to be your captain. I'm rolling with you guys. Like, got the team together, made this announcement, and then never set foot and never put a Gopher singlet on again. Once again, so we were told, the WWE had pulled the offer. 3 weeks after the NCAA season, they hold the Olympic trials. Now, only the NCAA and USAW could do something so stupid, but 3 weeks separated, they hold the trials. 1 week after the trials, which makes 4 weeks after the NCAA's, and 1 week too late for the trials, the WWE announces that they have cut Gable Steveson. So he can't get that year back that we just lost, and he also can't pursue Olympic aspirations if he had had any. But he lands on his feet, and people want him, and people are after him. And he somehow got a deal quietly with the Buffalo Bills. Of all the things that were offered and speculated in a return to wrestling and RTCs and coaching positions and $1 million with Iowa and $400,000 from Minnesota, and I mean all these different things that you're seeing. He pops up on PFL cameras and he's being talked to by Bellator, and Dana had mentioned him. Dana didn't take a meeting, but he knew who he was. Like, I mean, there was some really good things going on, and all of a sudden he's a Buffalo Bill, which there again, as a fan, I didn't get what I wanted. I wanted to see Gable back, but as a human, man to man, hey, great job, Gable, and congrats. That is really something special that you're now going to be a Bill. And we've seen it one other time from a wrestling standpoint in the form of Stephen Neal. Stephen Neal went on to, is there something called All Pro? Is that the cool one? Because he did that a bunch of times and he won 3 Super Bowls with the Patriots. So we've got kind of an idea. Gable's doing a lot of what Neal did, except 4 years younger. That's generally a good sign, right? So the Olympics came to an end. You might have heard of them. They were out of Paris. They were roughly 10 days ago. Maybe it's been a full 2 weeks. At which point, Gable finds out that he's released from the Buffalo Bills. So it turns out to just be a nightmare of timing. And I don't know what you have to do to get released from the Bills. Like, I really don't understand that. I know that he got some tackles somewhere along the way, and I don't think they're very deep into football season. Like, I think at the start of school is also kind of the start of football season, but they do a little, and so school's just starting and he's already had the tackle. I mean, I'm telling you, this is how I get to this conclusion, but to get one tackle in an early on game, and maybe even your first ever, to the point that Chael P., who does not follow football in the least, found out about it, I would have to think I would think that's good, isn't it? Because they released him. Now, I'm going to wrap this story. But Gable's one of these guys where he's going to land. He is not to his prime. He just simply is not. So, one thing, contrary to belief of everybody, is Gable potentially has a year of NCAA eligibility. I used to know everything about Olympic redshirt years. I was not the first to Olympic redshirt, but you probably couldn't name someone that did it before me. I can't remember because the year was 2000, and I can't remember where I came up with the idea or where I got this information you could do it, but I knew that my school did not know. They told me that I was wrong. When their bosses in administration looked at it, they did not know. They had never heard of this. So we ended up getting it done in 2000 for me. But while I went through, no one even knew you could do it. And after that, every coach in the country, and it wasn't by 2004, but it was by 8, definitely by 12, completely abused in 16. What every coach in the country realized is anybody that I'm redshirting, just apply for an Olympic redshirt year. If it's Olympic year, just apply for it. There was no standards. And that is true. In 2000, when I did it, you had to do it. There's a big risk because you had to do it retroactively. You could not be enrolled in any classes. If you could take classes, you then didn't need the year. So you had to pull out of all classes. You had to let the season go. Your eligibility would be gone, and then you could apply. And it would be retroactive that you would be granted a year back, but there was no standard. We did everything we could at the University of Oregon. I remember when Gary Gray's office worked on it. They called USA Wrestling. They dealt with Ike Anderson. I had to turn in everything that I did. The NCAA looked at it. But then, since then, the NCAA has now put criterion forward. And one of the criteria to be eligible, to even apply for an Olympic redshirt year, and it's the final criteria, is you must be qualified for the final wrestle-off. Now, USA Wrestling meant that you wrestle in the final wrestle-off, but that's not what they wrote down. They wrote down that you must qualify. And Gable, as the previous Olympian, qualified and could have showed up in the tournament in State College. He was a defending national team member. And therefore, if they did the paperwork, he, at least in theory, could be given a year back, which is right now. And the only reason I have to tell you in theory there might be a deadline for that. And the deadline for that might be the start of school, which on several campuses has already happened. Now, that deadline might not be the start of school. He might even have until the second semester. That I don't know. I'm just sharing for you. Like when you talk about the options that Gable could come back to, everything is on the table, including the fact that he could go because of a misapplication of the rule, but the rule nonetheless, he could go back to the NCAA. He could sign with one of these RTCs, make a commitment to do the next quad. A guy like Gable would bring in, you probably get $300 a year. $300 a year just to train in the room from an RTC. He might find somebody to give him $400. The only reason he wouldn't get 4 or 5 is because people are going to be looking around saying, hey, how come he keeps on getting dry? It's one of those things. But the Olympics do return to the U.S. They'd go to Los Angeles. 2028 could be something to look at. It's an exciting guy. I would imagine to be quite a force. I would imagine in the world of MMA, he could do this is what I would imagine. But I know football's really easy. And if you don't make it in there, I know professional wrestling isn't even real. So is there more to the story? Am I a mark? Or is the heavyweight class not very hard? Is that what it is? Are they just not very good? We may never know. Either way, hopefully, Gable's back.